Tommy Smith never hid his opinions. When he spoke, football listened. After one unforgettable night, he looked at referee Pat Partridge and delivered words that would haunt his name for decades.
There goes O'Hare, out goes the foot, and he caught him outside the box.
The only thing there is the referee on the side tonight is bloody ridiculous. He's given a penalty, he's disallowed a goal for us. It's terrible, he should be shot.
He called the performance bloody ridiculous. Then came the line, football never forgot. He should be shot. For most referees, a bad match is forgotten. For Pat Partridge, one whistle became a lifetime. He had reached the very top. Major finals, international football, the respect of the game. Yet none of it was enough, because football can be merciless. Years of excellence can disappear behind a single decision. One final, one whistle, one moment. That became his legacy. To Nottingham Forest, it was a night of celebration. To Liverpool, it became a wound that never truly healed. And standing between those two memories was Pat Partridge. More than 40 years later, people still argue about that night. Was he simply a referee doing his job? Or did one decision change how football would remember him forever? This is the story of a man who reached the top of his profession, only to spend the rest of his life being remembered for one controversial evening. Before we return to that final, we must first discover the man behind the whistle. Subscribe, because football does not only remember its greatest players, sometimes it remembers the men it never forgave. Pat Partridge was never meant to become one of football's most controversial referees. He simply loved the game. Growing up in Billingham, County Durham, his dream was to play football, not referee it. But one injury changed everything. The dream of becoming a player ended before it had truly begun. Instead of walking away from football, Pat chose a different path. In 1953, he picked up a whistle, a small decision that quietly changed his future. Away from the pitch, his life was simple. He trained as an apprentice electrician. Later, he worked as a sales representative. He married Margaret Heddle, and together they settled on her family's dairy farm. Pat loved football so much, he even named the farmhouse Law 1, the first law of the game. It was more than a clever name. It showed how deeply football had become part of his life. Year after year, his reputation grew. His calm authority, his confidence, his ability to control the biggest matches. Promotion followed promotion. Soon, the quiet man from County Durham had become one of England's most respected referees. The greatest nights of his career were still ahead. So was the one night that would change how football remembered him forever. Success did not arrive overnight. Pat Partridge earned every step, match after match, season after season. His reputation continued to grow. He was calm under pressure, confident without seeking attention. Players did not always agree with him, but they respected his authority. Football noticed. Promotion followed promotion. Soon, Pat Partridge was officiating in the Football League. Then came an even bigger reward. In 1971, he was placed on FIFA's International Referees list. It was proof he had become one of England's finest officials. The biggest matches soon followed. He took charge of the 1975 FA Cup final at Wembley. He refereed major European finals. He even worked on football's biggest international stages. For most referees, that would have been enough. Pat Partridge had reached the very top. His future looked secure. His reputation looked untouchable. Few people questioned his ability. Few imagined that years of hard work could one day be overshadowed. Because football has a cruel habit. It rarely remembers every great performance. Sometimes, it remembers only one decision. And for Pat Partridge, that decision was getting closer. The whistle that had taken him to the top was about to become the reason millions would remember his name. By the 1970s, football was changing. The game was no longer judged only by the people inside the stadium. Now, millions were watching from home. Every challenge, every foul, every decision could be replayed again and again. For referees, it was a new kind of pressure. Pat Partridge understood it better than most. He once joked that a referee was there to be shot at. It sounded like harmless humor, but football was becoming less forgiving. One of the first signs came during a match between Manchester United and Stoke City. Pat Crerand spat at Tony Allen. Partridge never saw it. The television cameras did. The incident caused huge controversy, and helped change how football viewed spitting. It was proof that the camera could see what the referee could not. From that moment, every major official knew the game had changed. Pat Partridge continued to referee at the highest level. His confidence never disappeared. Neither did the trust placed in him. But television had created a new judge, the replay, and once the replay told a different story, a referee's reputation could change overnight. Pat Partridge did not know it yet, but the biggest replay of his career was only months away. One final, one whistle, one decision, and football would never look at him the same way again. March 1978. Old Trafford, Liverpool. Nottingham Forest. The League Cup final replay. Bob Paisley's Liverpool wanted another trophy. Brian Clough's Forest wanted to announce themselves to English football. The first final had ended without a winner. Everything came down to one night and one referee, Pat Partridge. He had handled great occasions before. Another major final seemed like just another assignment. It wasn't. Early in the second half, John O'Hare burst through the middle. Phil Thompson challenged him. Pat Partridge pointed to the penalty spot. Liverpool were stunned. Their players rushed towards the referee. They believed the foul had happened outside the box. Partridge never changed his decision. John Robertson stepped up. He scored. Forest led 1-0. Liverpool's frustration kept growing. Then came another moment. Terry McDermott found the net. Liverpool thought they had equalised, but the whistle sounded again. Handball, no goal. Within minutes, two decisions had changed the final. When the match ended, Nottingham Forest celebrated. Liverpool walked away furious. For Pat Partridge, the biggest match of his career had just become the most controversial. The penalty became the wound. Liverpool did not just feel unlucky, they felt wronged. Phil Thompson had brought down John O'Hare. That part was not the argument. The argument was where it happened. Liverpool believed the foul was outside the box. The replays seemed to support them. Even Thompson later admitted he knew O'Hare was outside the area when he kicked him. But Pat Partridge had already pointed to the spot. And once he made that decision, there was no way back. John Robertson scored. Forest had the lead. Liverpool had the anger. Then came Terry McDermott's disallowed goal. Another whistle. Another argument. Another moment Liverpool could not accept. To Nottingham Forest, it was a trophy-winning night. To Liverpool, it became the final they believed had been stolen. And at the centre of it all was the same man, Pat Partridge. But Pat Partridge never accepted that he had simply got it wrong. Later, he defended himself. He insisted there was no doubt about the penalty, and he said both he and his linesman were convinced Terry McDermott had controlled the ball with his arm. To Liverpool, that explanation changed nothing. The damage had already been done. The final was over. Tommy Smith's anger was not. The Liverpool hardman believed his team had been denied, not by Nottingham Forest, but by the referee. After the match, Smith did not hold back. His criticism of Pat Partridge was fierce. He even used words so harsh, they followed the referee for the rest of his life. Within hours, those comments were everywhere. The referee had become the biggest headline. For Pat Partridge, everything changed. Years of respected officiating were suddenly overshadowed by one controversial night. Whenever his name was mentioned, people remembered Liverpool, the penalty, the disallowed goal, and Tommy Smith's unforgettable reaction. Some believed Partridge had simply made two difficult decisions. Others believed Liverpool had paid the price. The debate never truly disappeared. For Tommy Smith, it became another painful football memory. For Pat Partridge, it became the match that defined his legacy forever. The years moved on. Football changed. New players arrived. New controversies replaced the old ones. But for Pat Partridge, the shadow of 1978 never completely disappeared. He continued to serve the game. He represented England at the 1978 World Cup. After retiring, he remained deeply involved in refereeing. He later became chairman of the Referees Association and continued helping the next generation of officials. Away from football, life became much quieter. He returned to the countryside with his wife Margaret. The packed stadiums, the pressure, the endless arguments slowly faded away. In 2014, football officially recognized his contribution. He was awarded the British Empire Medal for his services to the game. It was one of the highest honours of his life. Just months later, Pat Partridge passed away at the age of 81. He left the game with the respect of football's authorities. But among many supporters, one memory refused to disappear. Not the honours, not the finals. Just one controversial night, one whistle, and a debate that never truly ended. Football has changed. Today, there is VAR. Every decision is replayed. Every angle is checked. But Pat Partridge belonged to a different era. No VAR, no second chances, just one referee, one whistle, one decision. That was enough to change football history. He reached the highest level of the game. He earned football's respect. Yet for many supporters, one controversial night became bigger than his entire career. That was real football. Raw, emotional, unpredictable. Players argued face to face. Managers spoke without filters. Supporters debated decisions for years. Not because of technology, but because no one could change what had already happened. Whether Pat Partridge was right, or whether Liverpool were wronged, the debate still lives on. And perhaps that is why people still talk about football from that era. Not because it was perfect, but because every mistake, every argument, and every controversy became part of football history. Pat Partridge is gone, but one whistle, one final, and one unforgettable controversy will make sure his name is never forgotten. Subscribe, because football's greatest history was not created by VAR. It was created by moments the world never stopped debating.